man stands above a Roman street, with a roof tile pressed against his chest. Below him, carts scrape past stone walls. Vendors shout. Smoke drifts from nearby workshops. From the ground, the city looks permanent. From the roof, it looks fragile. A plank shifts beneath his foot. The tile is heavier than it appeared from below. One bad step could send both of them into the street. The building might survive for 2,000 years. The man probably would not leave a name. We do not know how many workers were crushed beneath stone, burned inside workshops, poisoned beside furnaces, or slowly worn down by the labor that kept Roman cities alive. There are no reliable death lists, no ancient record ranking the city's most dangerous jobs. But the danger left traces in scorched walls, worn tools, abandoned workspaces, damaged bones. And the deadliest work may not have been the work that killed in a single moment. It may have been the work performed by people the city could replace without remembering. The most obvious answer moved through Rome after dark. The vigiles were firefighters, night watchmen, and part of the city's thin defense against disaster. While most people slept, they walked narrow streets carrying lamps, buckets, hooks, axes, and simple pumps. Fire was never far away. Homes depended on open flames. Workshops burned fuel late into the night. Upper floors crowded over streets barely wide enough for a cart. Once a blaze took hold, smoke and panic could travel faster than water. The vigiles had to move toward it. Their duties could take them into streets filled with shouting, falling debris, unstable roofs, and people forcing their way toward the same exits. Containing a fire could mean dragging debris aside, breaking through doors, or helping create space before the flames crossed into another building. It is easy to believe this was the city's most dangerous job. The threat was immediate, public, violent. But visible danger has one advantage. People remember it. The work that damaged a body slowly was easier to ignore. And beyond the firelight, other workers were entering places where the danger could not be seen at all. A Roman monument began as a place where heavy things moved above human bodies. Workers carried timber through narrow spaces, mixed mortar beside unfinished walls, and passed stone and roof tiles upward by hand. Most of it looked routine. That was the danger. A block slipping from a grip could crush a foot. A scaffold shifting beneath someone could turn one ordinary step into a fatal fall. Dust filled the air. Wet lime could burn exposed skin. Loads passed overhead with almost no margin for error. These were not careless men stumbling through primitive construction sites. Roman builders were skilled. Their methods were organized. Their materials were sophisticated. But skill did not remove the risk. It allowed the same dangerous movements to be repeated day after day across an entire city. A worker could survive one load, one climb, one wall. The danger came from having to survive all of them. And some jobs required no fall at all. They only required a worker to keep breathing. Inside a Roman metal workshop, danger did not always announce itself. The furnace glowed against blackened walls. Hammers struck hot metal. Smoke and vapor gathered around work that demanded heat, fuel, and constant proximity to the fire. A worker could leave at the end of the day without a broken bone or an open wound. That did not prove the work had left him untouched. Roman observers recognized that fumes from some metal processes could be dangerous. What they could not record was the damage repeated exposure might cause across months or years. The warning signs may have been easy to dismiss: irritated eyes, difficult breathing, perhaps a cough that slowly became part of the workshop, exhaustion blamed on heat and long hours. Not every craftsman handled the same metals. Not every furnace produced the same danger. The evidence does not allow us to diagnose an entire profession, but heat, smoke, and hazardous vapors were not accidents outside the work. They were part of the work. A falling stone could destroy a body in seconds. A workshop could damage it slowly enough for everyone to call it normal. And outside those walls, the city was still waiting to have its weight carried. Every morning, the city had to be carried into existence. Grain arrived in sacks. Wine and oil came sealed inside heavy amphorae. Timber, stone, tools, and merchandise moved from ships to warehouses, from warehouses to carts, and from carts into crowded streets. Human bodies connected every step. Porters lifted loads onto tired shoulders. Dock workers crossed wet stone while carrying objects heavy enough to injure them if a foot slipped. A damaged knee, strained back, or injured hand did not always end the work. Sometimes it only made the next load harder. This labor rarely produced one spectacular moment. Its danger accumulated through repetition. The same lift, the same turn, the same weight pressing down, hour after hour. Human remains can preserve trauma and patterns consistent with long-term physical stress, but they rarely tell us exactly what job a person performed. Bones preserve damage, they do not preserve job titles. That uncertainty matters because the people who carried the city are often easiest to see through the injuries they left behind. And that leads to a more disturbing question. Was the real danger the work itself, or having no power to refuse it? Danger did not belong to one profession. It followed status. Roman cities depended on free workers, freedmen, and enslaved people. They could enter the same workshops, carry the same loads, and stand beneath the same unstable walls. But they did not meet danger with the same freedom. A wealthy citizen could wear cleaned clothing, eat fresh bread, drink imported wine, and sleep behind walls protected by night patrols without entering the furnace room or climbing the scaffold. A low-status worker had fewer ways to step away. An enslaved person might have none. Not every builder was enslaved. Not every porter was poor. Roman labor was more complicated than a single division between masters and slaves. But power still shaped exposure. The less control a worker had over where he worked, how long he worked, and whether he could stop after an injury, the more dangerous the same task became. This is where the question changes. The ancient city did not eliminate risk. It concentrated risk in people with the least power to escape it. But the Romans were not completely blind to these dangers, and that makes the system harder to explain. Romans were not completely helpless in the face of danger. They organized night patrols. They developed equipment for fighting fires. Builders understood how stone, timber, mortar, and lime behaved. Some Roman writers even recognized that certain fumes produced during metalworking could be harmful. Workers likely carried practical knowledge learned through repetition. Experience could reveal which materials failed, which tasks demanded caution, and which conditions made a workplace harder to survive. We rarely know the exact rules they followed, but dangerous work does not continue for generations without workers learning ways to endure it. The problem was not simply ignorance. Recognizing a risk did not guarantee that anyone would remove it. Changing a method could require more time, different materials, or less production. And a worker who understood the danger might still lack the power to stop. That is what makes the system more unsettling. The danger was not always hidden. Sometimes it was known, managed, and still accepted. And once risk becomes normal, the search for one deadliest job begins to miss the deeper answer. There was no single way for a Roman job to destroy a body. For the vigiles, danger could arrive in one violent moment, through fire, smoke, falling tiles, a collapsing roof. For builders, it could be a fall, a crushing load, or an injury that never fully healed. Inside a metal workshop, the damage might leave no obvious wound at all. Heat, smoke, and hazardous fumes could become part of the air a worker breathed every day. For porters, the danger was repetition. The same weight, the same joints, the same body returning to the task after pain had already begun. We cannot rank these jobs with confidence. Rome left no reliable record of occupational deaths. Some dangers survive in texts. Others appear in workplaces, tools, trauma, and changes preserved in human remains. But the evidence points toward a deeper pattern. The deeper danger was being easy to replace, poor enough, dependent enough, or powerless enough that injury did not free you from the work. It only made the next day harder. The jobs were different. What connected them was the kind of person expected to endure them. And that pattern did not disappear with Rome. Modern cities can feel safer because much of their danger has moved beyond ordinary sight. The furnace is farther away. Waste disappears beneath streets. Cargo arrives packed, sorted, and ready to use. Most people see the finished object. They do not see the heat, dust, weight, noise, or risk absorbed somewhere along the way. Rome created a similar psychological distance, even when the dangerous work happened nearby. A citizen could admire a new wall without seeing the scaffold, wear clean clothing without entering the fuller's workshop, eat bread without standing beside the mill. Comfort grows when the process disappears. Ancient and modern labor are not identical. The laws, technologies, and protections are different, but the pattern remains recognizable. The product stays visible. The body that paid for it fades into the background. Rome assigned danger to people others rarely had to notice. We often place it where we rarely have to look. And somewhere inside that distance stands the same worker we began with, holding the weight of the city above an ordinary street. The worker is still standing above the street. The roof tile is pressed against his chest. Below him, carts scrape past stone walls. Vendors call from the corners. Smoke moves between the buildings. He may survive the day. He may survive thousands of days like it. We do not know his name, how long he worked, or what finally ended his life. That uncertainty is not a gap in the story. It is the story. Rome preserved the wall, the road, the workshop, the monument. It preserved what these workers made far better than it preserved the workers themselves. Their labor entered the city. Their identities disappeared inside it. There was no single deadliest job we can prove, but the deeper danger is easier to recognize, to be necessary enough that the city could not function without you, and powerless enough that it could replace you without remembering. Civilization does not remove risk. It decides where risk will be placed. A city becomes comfortable when its most dangerous work disappears from view.